It's a brand new month, it's a brand new angle, it's a brand new time of day, but it's still what's happening at the tavern. Okay, so why did I have my poor maligned, oversunned fern in shot? Good old Cthulhu herb. It's because we're talking about Sons of the Forest, which launched on February 24th, and it managed to crash Steam in the process. The demand for the game was so huge that it crashed Steam. The Forest has a passionate following. The trailer video that I did some voiceover for late last year, link down with this video, has over 4.6 million views. You can hear me in there as the father, by the way. And in Sons of the Forest, I am so privileged to be able to share that you can hear me as one of the first things you actually hear in the game. I am the helicopter pilot, and I also voice the coughing up lungs full of ocean on the beach. Those are my efforts there as well. And you'll hear me in one or two other places along the way. And I'm working alongside wonderful people like Lani Minella, who I just always love working with. She is an absolute gem and a legend in the industry. So you can hear me there. Now, if you like crafting games, if you like tree puncher games like Minecraft or Icarus or stuff like that, and you like horror, and you're not aware of Sons of the Forest, go get it. Get on that, because it is absolutely your jam. The trailer, the actual launch trailer for Sons of the Forest, the one basically that I've linked down with this video, I'll warn you ahead of time, it has some images in there that I think are genuinely disturbing. It is a very, very creepy game. But the cool thing is, I was talking with Michael Tiller of Kapow Audio, and he was saying that the game actually has multiple settings. So it's a beautiful looking game. If you want to basically go and make awesome tree houses or go and create your own island resort, you can do that by either going into pacifist mode, where all of these creatures are still out there but won't engage with you, or you can just turn off all of the enemies altogether and they won't be there at all. And so you can take advantage of the beautiful engine. Like, have a look. Well, I guess it's tricky to say have a look at the trailer, because there are those moments that are genuinely horrifying. But yeah, it's an incredible looking game. I can't recommend it enough. Okay, so what else has been happening at the tavern? Well, this is a bit of a callback to the previous video, but I did some work for a regular client that was efforts and exertions for a horror-based game. It wasn't The Forest, or Sons of the Forest, rather. This is something different that I can't talk about because it's under NDA. But I was able to go into that space of doing fighting and running, drowning and all of that stuff, but adding an emotional component. It was exactly what they were looking for. So adding on basically disgust or fear or anger or pain as part of something was just so good. It was delicious. It was wonderful to be able to inhabit that space after talking about it briefly in the last What's Happening at the Tavern. It's such a joy to be able to add an emotional component to those efforts and exertions, because it makes them so distinctive. It really puts them in another world. Like they become so much more evocative. And again, I get why a lot of games don't do it, because it means that your VO then needs to be specific to a combination of circumstances, but it's just so much fun. I also had an interesting experience in March where I had my birthday, and thanks to the cunning plans of our social media manager, I had some wonderful wishes on Twitter. So if you were one of the people who responded on Twitter and said something lovely, thank you so much for that. It means the world. And because things had been quite hectic, I made a conscious decision to box my birthday. I decided, well, I'm going to watch some movies the night before. I'm going to spend my birthday offline. I'm not going to do anything work-wise. And I got to tell you, it was sublime. My partner and I, we spoiled ourselves with breakfast. There's this wonderful bagel place that's nearby that is a little exy, but by God, is it worth it. It's called Sable in Thornbury. And they have this amazing menu with vegan options because we're both vegan. And we just had the most delicious, indulgent breakfast. And I just sat and chilled and played Astroneer. The game has a little bit of a rocky onboarding, and I've tried to play it a couple of times and bounced off it pretty hard. But I thought, no, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to wrap my head around it, and that's going to be kind of the thing I'm going to do today. So I decided I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything that is more of a goal, of an output. I'm just going to sit and do that, and it was wonderful. There was a little bit of a hiccup and a little bit of a panic later in the day because I had been contacted by a client via a pay-to-play site that I've jumped back on recently, just as another revenue stream. I'd made a choice to jump off them a while back, but I'm on them at the moment because they have a steady stream of auditions and their pay is tolerable. It's good, like it's not terrible. But this client had reached out to me at the end of the previous day, after I had down tools for the day. So I was off email, and we're talking about 5:30, 6 o'clock. So, end of business hours. They'd reached out with an urgent gig. And so there was some argy-bargy emails from support from this pay-to-play site, which I wasn't terribly happy about and pushed back on when I responded. There was, though, this momentary flood of panic because I thought, my God, what have I done? I'm so unprofessional. I'm not responding to messages. Even though this was well inside the 24-hour response period that I actually had configured on my profile, I thought, oh, I've dropped the ball. I've dropped the ball because I want to be selfish and I want to have a day off. And I reached out to the client and I had to think about what to do. And so there was two choices in front of me. I could either stop what I'm doing and pick up the job and go with the job and give them a read. So go and record some audio. Or I could respond to them and say, look, I'm so sorry I wasn't available. However, I think the best thing for you to do, because at this point they were either stating or threatening. They were basically saying, look, we need to go with another talent, so this is what's going to happen. So I responded amiably and said, I'm so sorry. So sorry I wasn't available. However, I think the best thing for you to do would be, to get a timely response, would be to reach out to another talent. I completely understand. And there was a momentary panic around that because I was pushing work away. But the reason why I did that is because I'd made a conscious choice to make my birthday a restful day, to recharge, to gather resources. And I'm really glad I did that as well, for a couple of reasons. One is, the next day, an audition landed on my doorstep for a much higher pay point. It was a very well-paying commercial gig. And so because I'd marshaled energy, because basically I'd saved my resources, I was able to approach that, I feel, with my best foot forward. Now, I didn't get the gig, but that doesn't matter. I put my hat in the ring for it, and I did everything that I could do to approach it as best I could. The other thing that happened as well, and this is interesting, is the other gig, which, was still paying okay, actually came back to me. The client said, look, I went with another talent. I wasn't 100% happy with what I got. Look, can we do this? Can you record for me? And I said, yeah, sure. Look, let's do this. Just if you can put the gig up on the site, then absolutely, let's go for it. So in the end, it actually came back around. It actually came back around to me after all. And the thing that I find when I'm deliberate about taking rest, and this shouldn't surprise me because there's a couple of books that I've read around this that have been instrumental in reinforcing that it's actually a smart decision. Whenever I take rest, the next day my brain is like, hey, problem 2, 3, 4, and 5 that you've been thinking through? Here's solutions around that. Here's what you need to be doing with that. When I am intentional about spending time with my daughter on weekends, then again, like Monday, my brain comes back and goes, hey, actually, we've kind of catalyzed a bunch of stuff for you. Here you go. Here are the things you've been thinking about. And there's a couple of books I'm going to talk about down the track. There's a few things that I want to put out there in terms of video content at a higher cadence than you've seen in the past. I'm going to be producing more video content. And there's a couple of books that actually talk about this that I've read in the past, and I feel like, at really pivotal moments. So I'm going to come back to that. It shouldn't surprise me, but it does, because even though we know what the best thing is to do, it's so hard in the moment to do things like saying, no, actually, you know what? I'm not going to do the work. I'm going to take time to rest and recharge and repair. It's really hard to do that. So what else did I want to talk about? So that was my birthday. Routines. I've been thinking about routines recently as well, because I've kind of had a little bit of an upheaval over the last month. February had a few health related things going on. So that kind of intervened in the schedule. There was a bit of a disruption on the home front as well. Nothing drastic. It just meant basically accommodating some different circumstances. And that meant some adjustments to the morning routine. And I've noticed two things. I'll talk about my morning routine in an upcoming video as well, because I just want to talk about routines and sort of the intentions behind why I do certain things in a certain order. But I've noticed that when I don't do my morning exercise, that makes a massive difference. When I exercise in the mornings as the first thing I do after meditation, so I get up, meditate for 5 minutes, and then I do exercise. The difference that makes is massive in terms of the energy that I have for the rest of the day. I find if I exercise, then my body is just completely energized for the rest of the day from that exercise. I find, and this is quite unusual for me, but I've found that if I exercise in the morning, then a couple of cups of coffee will actually get me through to 1 p.m. Whereas previously I used to be really grumpy if I didn't get breakfast. I used to get really hungry early, but not so much nowadays. That exercise is a pivotal part of it. It just kind of armors me for the first part of the day. The other thing I found as well, because there have been a couple of times recently, because of disruptions, I've then kind of said, I'm gonna actually give myself an out. I'm not gonna do my morning study, because after exercise I read for 30 minutes. There's always a book that I'm reading through that for some particular reason, whether it's basically a book on acting or productivity or something else. There is something that's captured my attention, and that's the book that I'm moving through over time. And at the moment, it's Building a Second Brain. I've just finished that, so I'm going to put some video content together around that. I'm going to talk about that more soon. In fact, probably in the next few days. But what I want to talk about for the moment is the fact that I've realized if I don't do that reading, it makes a massive difference to how I start my day, because I found that 30 minutes allows my brain to warm up, to catalyze, to then tick over on things. And then basically I will often find that while I'm reading, my brain is thinking through what are the tasks that I want to be doing for the day, or there might be something sparked by the book that I'm reading that's related to a project that I'm working on. And so I've got my bullet journal nearby, and I'll scroll notes and make sure that everything basically is down on paper so I don't have to think about it again. But yeah, on the days when I don't do that, I find that I'm floundering with how to get into the day. Whereas if I do my morning study, then the difference is that I find that by the time that 30 minutes is over, it's not that I'm bored, but it's that I have such a concrete idea of what's going to happen for the rest of the day. What are my priorities, that I'm just raring to go to get into things. So yeah, again, I'm going to come back to morning routines in a later video, but I just wanted to share that with you. So it'd be interesting to hear, like, what are the cornerstones of your morning routines? What are the things you absolutely need to do? And if you don't, then you find that it makes a massive difference to the rest of your day, to the quality of your day. I'd be really interested to hear. Now, there was one last thing. We're coming up on 15 minutes. I want to be relatively quick around this, but there was one last thing that I promised to get back to. I think it's a couple of videos ago now. But I said that I was going to talk about why I stopped streaming on Twitch. And there's a couple of things that have actually put this at the front of my mind at the moment. One is that I was reminded of this because Twitch altered its payment structure today, and now it's at 50-50. It's a 50-50 split on subscriptions between the streamer and Twitch, which is just, that is beyond the pale. YouTube is still at a 30-70 split favoring the creator, but Twitch has changed its payment structure, which is a thing. But yeah, like, I just want to talk about this briefly. I started streaming in 2018 after doing a PAX panel on horror games with Brian Holland. The series of panels over time has been called The Last Panel on the Left, and I've had tremendous fun with them. And what I found on that panel is that I wanted the conversation to continue. I wanted to keep talking about games with people. I wanted to talk about what it was about horror games that I liked. What I thought was interesting. Is this a horror game? Is it not? Why does it work so well? And so that's what got me into streaming. I wanted to continue that conversation, and to be completely honest, in a forum where I was able to keep talking to people with them, because people respond in chat. But yeah, I wanted to be able to just have an audience for my thoughts because, well, I'm an actor, so, you know, I'm inherently egotistical. And I went on streaming over time, built up a community, reached affiliate, and I had a lot of fun with it. And I found that in a time when my personal life was going through a lot of challenges, streaming actually gave me a lot of things back as well, which I do not take for granted at all. But there was an incident that happened, and it happened, good Lord, when did I stop streaming? Was it this year, last year? I think it was late last year. Time is a thing. Pandemic time frames have messed with my ability to remember time. But there was a situation where someone in chat was talking about something that had happened with their day, and they said, oh, and you know, I had this particular deal with this person, and I felt like I was gypped. And I just stepped in at that point in time and said, no, we don't use that word. Like, that word is not okay to use here. And there's a link down here with the video that talks about why that is a word that is, I think, a good one to audit from your vocabulary. But it essentially is kind of an equivalent of, and forgive me for using this word, but when people, in fact, that's the best way to talk about this. There is a way that people use the descriptor Jew or Jewish to talk about bargains or thrift in a way that is a pejorative. It is a negative term. Gypped comes from gypsy, and gypsy in and of itself is not a descriptor of a particular people. The people that tends to apply to are actually referred to, as I understand it, as Romani. Whereas gypsy is kind of a colloquial term that comes from, when you look at the actual evolution of language, it comes from a very negative place. It's not a cool word to use. So I invite you to rethink your use of the word gypsy, which, especially in hippie spaces, is a word that kind of has been given this kind of free pass, or this kind of it has this whole other thing going on with what it's meant to be describing. But yeah, it is not a great word. And so we had a conversation on chat, and that conversation was a lot of people kind of trying to gently but firmly say to this person, look, no, look, what you need to understand is this is not okay. And there was pushback, and there was an argument from the person where they say, well, look, this is what I think about this, this is what I understand, and this is why it's okay to use, blah, 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 blah. And the outcome of that, the actual fallback from that, or fallout rather, is that one of the most long-standing members of the community that I had built up over time left the community, because they felt that intolerance wasn't treated with enough of a firm pushback, that because there was a conversation with this person, they felt that was accepted. And one of the reasons why I've been thinking about this as well is because I've opened up the Tavern of Voices Discord server. There's an invite link down in the actual text for this video as well. if you want audition notices, then jump on in there. That is the first place that they will be going in future. From day one with streaming, I was always trying to provide a supportive, a safe, and an inclusive space. I was never trying to be the biggest streamer. I was never trying to have massive numbers. What I was trying to do was create a space where when people turned up, they felt seen, they felt recognized, they felt listened to and heard, and they felt like it was a safe place. And for me, what that means is intolerance, shitty behavior, all that sort of thing just was not allowed. If people came into the stream and were saying things that weren't okay, or even if they had a Twitch identifier that had, even if their Twitch name had something in it that was a little bit suspect, there'd always be basically a comment that I would make around that saying, hey, look, just to let you know, this part of your Twitch name is giving me a little bit of a red flag here. So I'm keeping an eye on things, but you know, other than that, welcome to the channel. And so after I lost this member of my community who had been there since largely the start, I sat down and I really had to think about what is it that I'm getting out of streaming versus what I'm putting into it. And that sounds mercenary. And, you know, you could maybe say that it is. Maybe it is. But I think that it's super important, especially if there are a lot of demands on your time and your energy and your attention. You have to be honest with yourself about where it's going. And one of the things I sat down and thought about is that streaming weekly, which was an activity that I really enjoyed, was locking up 2 nights of my week and a total of 6 hours a week. And there are so many things that I want to get done, so many projects that are yet to actually be realized that I want to get out into the world. And so I had to stop for a moment and be honest with myself and think, well, you know, this is a large dedication of time and energy to serving the community, because I didn't make really any money out of it. Any money that came from subscriptions would go on to donation to worthy causes, because, well, first and foremost, I didn't need the money really at the time, and second of all, because I wanted to try and make a difference in the world. And so I sat down and I looked at what is it that I'm getting out of streaming versus what is it that I'm putting into it, and the math, it just didn't add up. Because creating this safe space, creating this safe, inclusive space, which, you know, on top of streaming, which takes a lot of emotional energy, like, you know, that took a lot as well. I was really careful about trying to manage relationships between community members, making sure, for example, that, you know, like mods weren't overstepping boundaries, which was, you know, I've lost people in the past because a mod had a bad day and decided in the Discord server to then basically have a go at someone. So it takes a lot of emotional energy. And so fundamentally, I just realized that the math didn't work, that what was coming out of streaming as an output or as a benefit for me versus what was going in just didn't make sense. And so fundamentally, what I had to do was pull on the cable for my mic. And so fundamentally what I had to do was give it up, which is sad. I miss it. I won't lie, I really do miss it. And I'm looking at ways to bring back some of that experience without it being basically a fixed demand on my time and attention. But it just fundamentally the math didn't work. And I invite you to make the same calculations around the things that you are doing that are tangential to your creative pursuits. And so for me, I had to look at it and think, well, that's 6 hours a week. That's not going to acting training. That's not going to any of the creative projects that are around voiceover and interactive, fully voiced experiences that I'm passionate about. It's got to go. And I invite you basically to use that lens on those things that are tangential to whatever your creative pursuit is as well. I think it's good every now and then to stop and think, where is my energy? Where is my time? Where are all of my resources going? And does that serve where I fundamentally want to be? Because it's not that streaming is a bad thing, but it's just that for me, it didn't reflect. There was fundamentally a disconnect between where I want to be creatively and what that took from me. Okay, this has gone on for longer than I thought, so I think I might shave this off and make this a separate video rather than putting it in with the what's happening at the tavern. So yeah, that's probably where you're going to find it. But yeah, that's it. This has been what's happening at the tavern for this month. Thank you so much for listening. I would love to hear from you about what's going on in your world. If there was something here that you found interesting, that resonated with you, drop a message in the comments. What's the cornerstone of your morning routine? What's the thing that you can't be without? I would love to hear. Stay safe, stay well, and I'll talk to you soon.